ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिकाकांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Welcome everyone to the fascinating description of the dynamics of action from Krishna in the 18th chapter. So let me just recap a few things. Uh, Relog in. So let's recap. On anything. Just hold on, I'm having a little bit of difficulty here. Okay. So let's recap what we have covered so far. So Krishna is going through a detailed analysis of how actions take place, and Krishna's motivation for all of us is to move gradually to the position of goodness and then to transcendence. So Krishna talked about two constituents of action. Sorry, three constituents of action. So if you remember, they are Jnanam, Geyam, and Parigyata, right? So we are referring to Jnanam here as, instead of calling it knowledge, we are calling it conception. So there has to be some proper conception while we are working on something. So Jnanam, then Geyam. Geyam means the object of knowledge. And then Parigyata means one who is the knower. Okay. And then there are three ingredients of action. The three ingredients of action are, in other words, how the action is getting initiated and so on and so forth. So there are karanam, and then karta and karma. So karanam meaning the senses with the help of which we are acting. And then karta means the initiator of action, which basically means the conditioned soul. So we are all conditioned souls who are you can say, conditioned to do things in a particular manner. So here also the element of false ego come into the picture. So the senses, then the initiator of action, the karta, and the action itself. Okay. And then Krishna talked about the 5 factors of action. The 5 factors of action, we mentioned that you need a field for action to take place. And that field essentially means either the body or the environment. And by the body, what we mean is the specific species of life. So environment plus the species in which one is situated. So that creates certain boundaries and constraints. Then you need to initiate the action. Therefore, you need to have an initiator or karta. So here is where the false ego comes in. And how do we initiate actions? With the help of our senses. So everyone has a unique set of senses, both knowledge gathering senses as well as the working senses. And of course, we process things internally with our subtle senses, which are the mind, intelligence, and ego. So these are the different sensory prowesses that we are all endowed with, which is getting utilized in getting things done. Now, we may be endowed with certain skill sets, but we still have to make endeavors. Therefore, various forms of endeavors are also important. But all of these things can be present, but if the super soul does not sanction it, the action will still not take place. So the super soul has to sanction. So this is the Daivam factor. So 5 factors of action is basically leading towards or are leading towards the success in any action. So this is what leads to the success. So with this introduction, Krishna then picks the different pieces together and shows how they can be operating in the 3 modes of material nature. So in order to understand that, let's understand this picture. Okay. So Krishna talked about how you need, not Krishna talked about specifically in this way, but in order for all of us to understand this section properly, you can think of when an action is taking place. So you can think of there's before an action is getting performed, before an action is getting performed, then during an action, and then after the action. Okay. So before the action, you need to have a sense of some kind of conception. So this is where the conception comes in, as well as you need to have proper motivation for doing the action. So when you have proper conception and motivation, then you would be inclined to perform the action. And you would be performing that action with certain conviction. So you need to have conviction about sticking to your duty. And then finally, after the action has been performed, you will get an experience. Now, this experience is not just after the action. It is true that there is some experience also here, before and during performing the action as well. So these are the overall dynamics that Krishna is bringing together. So if you see, that's why I put it in this way. So you need basically conception, motivation. These are needed for you to even get the action going, right? So this is before. This is during the performance of action. Sorry. During the performance of action. And this is, you can say, after. Okay. So I hope you get the whole picture, how Krishna is presenting the Jnanam, Karta, Karma, Buddhi, Dhriti, and Sukh, all in the categories of three modes of material nature. So all of these are then classified according to the three modes. Okay. Let me try one more time. Some of the Okay, so we had already discussed about the conception and action in the three modes. Okay. And now we are going to go into talking about the motivation and discernment in three modes. So discernment is essentially buddhi, and motivation is the karta. So generally when we use these terms, like there is the gyan and there is buddhi. So gyan is generally translated as knowledge, like the conception with which you are working, right? But buddhi is the sense of what is right, what is wrong, the different factors of discrimination specifically. Therefore, I am here presenting gyan as the conception that we are supposed to work with the spiritual conception of life, and buddhi is the discernment faculty. So I hope you are able to see this. Okay, so now let's hear Krishna's description. So Mukta Sango Anaham Vadi Dhriti Utsaha Samanvitaha Siddhi Asiddhyor Nirvikaraha Karta Satvika Uchyate. So note, we are talking about karta. So the motivation in three modes. So first we are talking about the goodness. So here performer, meaning how do you become a performer? By having certain motivation, like you're initiating the action with some motivation. I want to do this because, whatever that may be. So Krishna is saying, when that motivation itself is free from attachment and false ego, mukta sango and anaham. So aham means I, right? That I-ness. Karta aham iti manyate. When that becomes anaham, that means without actually false ego. So therefore, free from attachment and false ego, accompanied by conviction and enthusiasm. Dhriti Utsaha Samanvita. So, a person in the mode of goodness, you can see, like naturally is endowed with knowledge, because the goodness, a person in the mode of goodness is always in touch with the scriptures, and therefore they are armed with illumination, right, of coming from the scriptures. So they are not just um, understanding the scriptures, but they are also enthusiastic to apply what is there in the scripture. So they are carrying strong conviction about the scriptural principles and always ready to apply with full enthusiasm. Therefore, dhriti utsaha. Sometimes we feel that utsaha, like when we see a lot of activity going on, we think that's mode of passion. So you can see that mode of goodness, a mode of goodness person is also very enthusiastic, but enthusiastic to bring the scriptures to life. Therefore, accompanied by conviction and enthusiasm. Dhriti Utsaha Samanvita. And because such a person is the mode of goodness, therefore there is a sense of detachment. And therefore, such a person is not wavered by success and failure. So there is a strong sense of resilience. And that's why success is what? Success is moving from one failure to another without losing enthusiasm and hope. That is actual success. Therefore, these are the conditions that Krishna is putting in. First is free from attachment and false ego. Second is accompanied by conviction and enthusiasm, and unwavering in success and failure. When all of these are satisfied, then a performer is said to be in the mode of goodness. And you can see all of these are motivations behind action, right? Performer, this Krishna is describing the motivation behind action. What happens when the motivation becomes rajasic or filled with passion? Then Krishna is describing ragi karma phala prepsur lubdho himsatmako ashuchihi harsha shokanvitah karta rajasah parikirtitah. So, unlike the person in the mode of goodness, a person in the mode of passion is thoroughly attached. So, attached to both action as well as fruit of action. Remember the duty? No, the point that we made in the section of renunciation. A person in the mode of goodness who is renouncing has got three characteristics. Do you remember those three characteristics?
No, attachment to fruits.
Yeah, the first thing is that they do things because it ought to be done. They are holding on to prescribed duties. Number two, they are not attached to fruits of action. Number three, they are not attached to duty itself. Okay. So, in the case of a person in the mode of passion, they are attached to both action as well as fruits of action. And desiring to enjoy the fruits of action, this karma phala prepsur, they become very greedy. And when there is greed, there must be also enviousness towards others. Because the idea is that, okay, I want to get everything. Why others should get it? And they are also impure in their thoughts, impure in their actions. And therefore, they are always switching states. They are never stable. In the case of person in the mode of goodness, they are usually balanced. As you saw, they are unwavered, right? Unwavered by success and failures. A person in the mode of passion, on the other hand, they're always getting affected by joy and sorrow. They're swinging between different emotions of life. Sometimes really, really happy. I got that. Yes. Another time, morose. Oh. Or sometimes they're even more morose when they see others succeed. And that is the typical nature of a person in the mode of passion. So you can see these are the motivating characteristics of a person in the mode of passion. So you can see these are the internal disposition. They are attached internally, right? They are desiring to enjoy the fruits of action, they're greedy, they're envious, they're impure in their thoughts, and naturally that show up in the action. And they are always filled with joy and sorrow, extreme emotions. Okay, so such a performer or karta is declared to be in a mode of passion. Let's see the mode of ignorance. So, mode of ignorance. So, as we mentioned, a person in the mode of goodness, they take shelter of the scripture. They take shelter of the scripture uh, to work towards the long-term gain. They are interested in all around welfare, not just about themselves. So that's the characteristic of a person in the mode of goodness. A person in the mode of passion, they may leverage scriptures, they may venture around in the karma kanda section of the scriptures, but they are selfishly motivated. They want to just see what is in it for me, WIIFM program, and nothing else. And then they will extract whatever is needed. In the case of mode of ignorance person, they are having two possible states. Either they are thoroughly lazy, they're inactive, and when they're active, they are going to be destructive. That's the person in the mode of ignorance because they are far away from any kind of knowledge. So you can see the description here. So they are improperly engaged. Ayuktaha prakrita stabdaha shatho nash kritiko alasaha Vishadi Dirgha Sutri Cha Karta Tamasa Uchyate. So first is that they are improperly engaged because they are not even trying to figure out what is to be done, what is not to be done with the help of the scriptures. So therefore improperly engaged. They don't listen to anybody. Second is that they are materialistic, prakritaha. Third, they are obstinate. Think of Hiranyakashipu. Fourth, they are deceitful. Fifth, malicious. Sixth, all of these factors are there, but they're also lazy. They're lazy. They're always cribbing about something, They're morose. I wish I had done that because they are living in the past. And then they're procrastinating. So actually, for the demons to do something harmful, they need to also lift themselves up in the mode of passion. Because if they are thoroughly in the mode of ignorance, then yes, they have a lot of interest in destroying the world, destroying people, but they would not be able to carry out those things. So they operate generally in the mixed mode of passion and ignorance, the demons, But you can see, these are the sentiments of a person operating in the mode of ignorance. So when we talk about becoming more aligned in the mode of goodness, or when I would say it this way. So suppose like we want to become more active. We don't want to procrastinate. Sometimes people ask these questions. How can I actually give up procrastination? I have a habit of procrastination. How can I give that up? So you can see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is not just picking one thing, like how do you fix this problem, right? How do you fix that problem? Krishna's focus is much more overarching, How do you solve the overall problem? The main thing is that you are operating in the mode of ignorance. That is the issue. The issue is not just procrastination. Issue is all across the board. Because if you're operating in the mode of ignorance, not just procrastination, but other things are also going to show up in your character. And therefore, we have to elevate our consciousness. We need to have some force which can lift our character up. Only then we can actually get rid of a lot of these bad habits, So nobody wants to be in these kind of categories, right? No, at least with the sane mind, I would say. Nobody with the sane mind would like to embrace these qualities. like being obstinate, deceitful, malicious, lazy, morose, procrastinating. Does it even sound attractive? It doesn't. But the problem is that's how we have been programmed to. That's how we had been conditioned for lifetimes. So we are almost like um, operating as if like we are forced to operate from these conditions. So unless we do something about it, nothing is going to change. And therefore, something lasting has to come from above. If we are just operating at our level, we would not be able to solve any of these problems. So we have to lift our character up. Okay, next Krishna talks about the qualities of a performer, which are characterized by discernment and conviction. So this is buddhi and dhriti, right? This is during the performance of action, they determine the quality of action. So conviction is dhriti. Prabhupada translates dhriti as determination. So they mean pretty much the same thing. Conviction, determination. You need discernment as well as conviction in order to stay put in an action. And the quality of modes that are affecting the performer in terms of discernment and conviction, they are going to determine the quality of action in turn. So Krishna is saying, let's hear about the divisions in discernment and conviction according to the three modes of material nature, as described in full in different ways. So here you go. So this is buddhi. Okay. So buddhi and dhriti. So first buddhi. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha karya akarya bhaya bhaye bandham moksham cha ya vetti buddhi sa partha satviki. So as I was mentioning, buddhi is a quality of discernment, being able to distinguish right from wrong, eternal from temporary, and so on and so forth. So you can see a person in the mode of goodness is in knowledge, and therefore the quality of discernment with which carries the understanding of what is to be done and what is not to be done. That is first thing, right? So they are clear about what is to be done and what is not to be done. Second, they are clear about karya and akarya, what is one's duty and what is not one's duty. Thirdly, they're also clear about what is to be feared and what is not to be feared. Now, this is a very interesting point. What is to be feared and what is not to be feared. So generally, if we are not so afraid of the materialistic affinities and the conditions of life here, we would be running for trying to enjoy the objects of sense gratification. But those who are properly situated in the mode of goodness, they carry a healthy fear of this material existence, knowing that any engagement that I get in, there is a danger of binding me to this material world. So if we are not fearful, then we will be bound. Therefore, the person in the mode of goodness is clear that okay, they are supposed to be afraid of this material existence. And what is not to be feared is really taking the initiative to serve the Supreme Lord. Any opportunities to serve the Supreme Lord have to be embraced. So there is no question of fear, because then we are dependent on the Supreme Lord. And then the fourth thing is that they are clear about what is binding and what is liberating. So a person in the mode of goodness will gravitate towards association, good association, right? They will gravitate towards association of devotees. A person in the mode of passion or ignorance, they will gravitate towards unwholesome association or places where they can somehow or other agitate their senses. So four things, so four qualities together form the the qualities of discernment, right? So what is to be done, what is not to be done, what is duty, what is not duty, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, and what is binding and what is liberating. Let's look at the mode of passion. The quality of discernment by which one, note this term, ayathavat, imprecisely understands righteousness and unrighteousness. What is one's duty and what is not one's duty, that is in the mode of passion. So the buddhi, or the quality of discernment in the mode of passion, has to do with understanding everything imprecisely. Everything they understand imprecisely. So it's not that they are not trying to understand, but they are not really getting the right conception. They are not getting the right conception because of the way they are pursuing that knowledge. So they imprecisely understand the righteousness and unrighteousness. In other words, dharma and adharma. They imprecisely understand what is their duty and what is not their duty. And therefore, everything becomes messed up. Because a person in the mode of goodness, a person in the mode of passion oftentimes thinks just maintaining the family is the goal of human life. Right? This is called imprecise understanding of duty. As long as you are able to take care of your family, take care of your children, making sure they have proper education, making sure we have proper money coming in, I have performed my duty very, very nicely. But is it what the human life is meant for? Dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho, dharmena hina pashubi samana. So proper understanding of dharma is save punsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radokshage ahetu ki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Proper understanding of dharma is that by which I can facilitate developing loving connection with the Supreme Lord. If this human form of life is not utilized to develop our loving connection with the Supreme Lord, doesn't matter how precise we may be in executing our human duties, it is still job not done properly. And that's why this is the impreciseness here. So if we are not taking guidance from the able members of the disciplic succession, we would be carrying imprecise understanding. It's just normal. Because if we are not taking shelter of the scriptures, if we are not taking shelter of those who are representing scriptures, then what's going to happen is that we will depend on our own mind. We will have our own self-concoctory ideas about what is to be done, what is not to be done, what is righteousness, what is not righteousness. You can see in the same battlefield of Kurukshetra, Duryodhan and on one hand, and then Arjuna on the other hand. They are both actually, in one sense, weak in their heart at the beginning of the battle. Duryodhan was weak because he was seeing that, okay, I was expecting only 5 brothers to come here. And he's like these whole Akshauhini divisions of fighters on the other side. What's going on? And so right at the very beginning, he was very, very nervous. But he was trying to manipulate the heart of his teacher. So he approached Dronacharya, not expressing what he is actually feeling, but totally misrepresenting his feelings and trying to boast him up in a manner that is just giving some empty words that look at the other side, look at our side, and trying to compare the strengths. So you can see that in the case of Duryodhan, his value system was totally messed up. In the case of Arjuna, he was also feeling tremendous weakness of his heart after seeing that I have to fight against my own family members. Yes, I understand this is the call of duty, but I have to fight against my own family members. I have tremendous attachment for them. So Arjuna was bold enough to confess before Krishna that I am facing the weakness of my own heart. Please help me out. So this is the key difference. So what determines whether one will carry an imprecise understanding of the duty or not is whether one is open-minded, whether one is ready to face one's own heart and be ready to share that with Krishna or Krishna's representative. Now let's look at the buddhi, or the quality of discernment for a person in the mode of darkness. The quality of discernment which covered by darkness considers unrighteousness as righteousness. So mode of passion was about imprecise, right? Here it is opposite. So here the key word is opposite, okay? Viparitamscha. Okay, there was ayatha. The word was ayathavat. Here it is viparitamscha. So here the person in the mode of ignorance considers unrighteousness as righteousness and takes every meaning in an opposite way. That is the mode of ignorance. In other words, in the case of mode of passion, it's like a translucent film going on, you know. Here it's an opaque. In the case of mode of goodness, it's transparent. They see things as they are. In the case of person in the mode of passion, they are seeing through translucent screen. And in the case of mode of ignorance person, everything is just opaque, just like shooting arrow in the dark. That's what a person in the mode of ignorance doing, you know. And therefore, they are most of the time, I would say, all the time, they are getting things wrong. That's why we see like articles getting published in today's society that they will say how so many different ways the meat eating can actually be beneficial to the society. You know, so that's exactly like you get the whole thing wrong. You try to profess something which is exactly what is supposed not to be done. You will come up with like cases for like, okay, why abortion is so great, you know, and you will quote something which is like a very, very small fragmental reasoning. Like, for example, they will say that, okay, abortion is fine because somebody may be in a very difficult position, that somebody is tortured or gone through physical harm, and therefore they should be protected. But that's just like 0.001% of the overall case. Most of the time, the question of abortion comes because of uncontrolled senses, because of callous lifestyle, you know. The point is that one would be ready to justify an improper action as proper with all one's might in the case of mode of ignorance. So the judgment is just reversed. Now let's talk about conviction, or dhriti. So dhriti, or determination or conviction. I hope you are still with me on the overall picture. That's why we started with the introduction. So dhritya yaya dharyate manah pranendriya kriya yogena avyabhicharinya dhriti sa partha satviki. The conviction by which the activities of the mind, life, and senses are sustained by undeviating practice of yoga. That conviction is in the mode of goodness. So look at how Krishna is defining conviction here. So conviction is meant to be tied up with the practice of yoga. And yoga means connection. So the activities, so obviously one is in action, right? One is performing action with certain conviction, with certain determination. The activities, the activities are deriving their strength from yoga. The activities of mind, life, and senses, they're sustained by what kind of yoga practice? An undeviating practice. That is called conviction in the mode of goodness. Such a beautiful explanation of how the conviction should be. And every word is so beautifully chosen. Avyabhicharinya yogena. So if you remember the formula that Krishna gave for escaping the field of material energy, the modes of material nature, what was that? You remember the verse? That's 14.26. Mam chayo avyabhicharana bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetan brahma bhuvaya kalpate. So there, that avyabhicharani, that bhakti is used. Avyabhicharani means unbroken, right? Unbroken or undeviating. So here also Krishna is saying the same point, that one's practice of yoga, Krishna has already established. I mean, after reaching 18th chapter, we should not be confused about what is this yoga that Krishna is referring to. You know, Krishna has already made that point zillions of times now. You know, Krishna is not talking about Ashtanga yoga here, of course. Krishna has said, like, Yogina api sarveshan maddaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam samaya yukta tamamata. Out of all the yogis, which is the best yogi? The bhakti yogi. Right? Krishna had elaborated on that point of which yoga one should be practicing in. By this time, that confusion should not arise. So when Krishna is saying avyabhicharanya yogena, what yoga are we talking about? Bhakti yoga, of course. I mean, sometimes people take arms, like looking at Prabhupada translating yoga as bhakti yoga in 2nd chapter, because they did not have the big picture, you know. It's like when you are riding on the freeway for the first time, you know, let's say you're going to a new place. So of course you're confused about so many things, and you would be like making sure you're not missing this exit, that exit, very, very cautious, right? But if you have traveled, like, I mean, we have gone to New York like more than 100 times now, okay? So for us, like, even if like we venture around a little bit, we know where to go, you know? That's not a problem at all. we can figure out, okay, this is the Skirmanhorn street where we have to reach, and we would be able to somehow or other make our way, you know? So likewise, in the case of Prabhupada, because he is right there, he has not only traveled the path of Bhakti Yoga, but he is situated on the highest platform of Bhakti Yoga, and he is encouraging people to also reach there. So when such a person who is so habituated to, you know, venture around that, he sees that every yoga is essentially converging in Bhakti Yoga, and he doesn't want anybody to get sort of astray by something which is like, suppose like a few people, they suppose somebody begins reading the Bhagavad Gita, and they say, okay, I will read only till 2nd chapter, I won't have any more it was the time and energy to go further. So Prabhupada makes sure even for that person will get the essence. Even if you read one page of the Bhagavad Gita, you'll still not miss out on the essence. So that is the goal with which actually Srila Prabhupada is giving the Bhagavad Gita. So at this point, at least we should not have any speck of doubt that yoga is essentially meant to be Bhakti Yoga. The conviction by which the activities of mind, life, and senses are all sustained by undeviating practice of yoga, that conviction is in the mode of goodness. Therefore, next time when we are working in the office, you have to ask this question: what conviction am I working with? Am I acting in yoga? You know, is my mind, my life, my senses are actually connecting with Krishna while I'm performing my actions? That's what Krishna is talking about here. Then our dhriti will be in the mode of goodness. Otherwise, how will that look like? But that conviction, so here comparison, so therefore the word tu comes, but that conviction which is eager for fruit, again, phala kankshi or phala prepsuna, you saw those keywords appearing over and over again for a person in the mode of passion. That conviction which is eager for fruit. So this person is always eager for fruit, selfish. always selfish. By which righteousness is sustained for the sake of enjoying lustful desire with intense attachment. That conviction is in the mode of passion. So this verse you can just translate into the office work. What kind of conviction are we carrying when we are even operating from the platform of righteousness, so-called righteousness in the office? What is actually behind that righteousness? It's about how I can actually fulfill my own agenda, because there is intense attachment. Is it not? So people may be nice to one another in a social setting, but that nicety, or that the nice dealings that are involved there, behind that is a spirit of exploitation. Ultimately, what I can actually get for myself, or how I can maximize my own sense gratification. That conviction, which is always eager for fruit, by which righteousness, the so-called righteousness or dharma, right, is sustained. Dharma is sustained for the sake of enjoying lustful desire with intense attachment. That conviction is in the mode of passion. So you can say that is cheating in one sense, or duplicity. A person in the mode of ignorance is or at a different level altogether, as you would expect. The unintelligent conviction by which one cannot give up sleep, fearfulness, lamentation, depression, and even madness. That conviction is in the mode of darkness. So you can see this interesting combination here, right? The combination is that either they are totally in an inactive state, like sleep, swapna, or they are fearing, like they are hiding themselves in a closet, or they are lamenting, thinking about, oh, I wish things would have been better for me, all the time just living in the past and totally depressed about it. Or when they have to act, they may act with madness. So that is the situation with a person in the mode of ignorance, and therefore they are referred to as dur medha, or unintelligent. Okay, so now, having described all these characteristics of action, and just to remind ourselves what we had talked about. So action, so before we perform action, we need motivation, right? We all work with certain conception, right? And these things lead to action, which are performed with what? With some conviction, as well as discernment, which means we are trying to figure out what is what, right? And ultimately leading to an experience. So therefore, now Krishna is talking about how does the experience look like. Yeah. So that's sukha. It's a very, very interesting description. Very beautiful set of verses. So this is, you can say, before, during, and after an action also. But most importantly, what matters is the aftermath. What happened? So sukham tu idaning trividham shuno me bharatarshava abhyasad ramate yatra dukhantam cha nigachati. But now, let's hear from Krishna about the three kinds of happiness one enjoys in practice and reaches the end of distress. Okay? So Krishna is saying yatra abhyasad, right? So in practice. So first, happiness in the mode of goodness. Yat tad agre visham iva pariname amritopanam upamam tad sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. So that which is just like poison at the beginning and like nectar at the end, that happiness is said to be in the mode of goodness. And note that atma buddhi prasadajam. This happiness is born from what? This happiness is born of self-discernment and mercy. Okay. So that kind of happiness which begins with poison. Poison meaning what? It's essentially a lot of austerity may be involved. But then it ends in a nectar. So that kind of happiness is said to be in the mode of goodness. And that happiness is not coming, it's not generated from outside, you can see. That is the point to note here. That happiness is not generated from outside. It is born of self-discernment and a gift from Krishna. So this is basically saying it's born from inside, right? So happy within. And it's a gift from Krishna. It's a gift from Krishna for the job well done. When one is carrying proper sense of discernment, one is working with proper conviction, connected with yoga, right? One is initiating the action with clarity. Then it's a gift from Krishna that yes, you are striving to align your life with the scriptures. And therefore, here is your gift. And the gift is you will experience happiness, the real happiness. So even though this person may go through a lot of austerity, but that austerity itself is not going to cause distress for this person. Why? Because internally, that person is united with Krishna. Because at every step, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for example, prays that please do not take away the privilege of suffering for your sake, or struggling for your sake. Please do not take away the privilege to struggle for your sake. But as a part of the struggle, there is like a lot of, you can say, austerity involved, pain involved. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying that do not take away that pain from me, because within that pain is a nectar, and the nectar that I'm experiencing is a nectar of divine connection with you, my Lord, and I don't want to miss out on that. So we may be going through a lot of hard work for the sake of Krishna. When it is done for the sake of Krishna, there is always going to be internal bliss, and we will experience Krishna's mercy at every step, and therefore it is nectar. So somewhat poisonous in the beginning, in the sense from external standpoint, but from this person's standpoint, the person in the mode of goodness, it's nectar all in all. Rajasam, on the other hand, is reversed. Vishendriya samyogad yat tad agre amritopamam pariname visham iva tat sukham rajasam smritam. That happiness from the happiness from the contact of the senses with their objects, which appear like nectar at the beginning, but like poison at the end, is considered to be in the mode of passion. I think we do not need any more evidence of that. Like throughout our life, we have been trying to do this, trying to extract happiness by bringing our senses in touch with the sense objects. And we know what happens. The very same object becomes the cause of our misery. The very same object that we anticipated so much of pleasure in becomes the cause of our misery. And this is, I mean, many examples can be given to demonstrate this point, but we are just having a summary discussion here. That's why I do not want to spend too much time also. But we can see in our life when we came to US, for example, right? At the time when we are contemplating on the object of the senses, thinking about US, let's say, that when I go to US, it's like Swarga, like you will enjoy, right? There will be no more problem. It's Vaikuntha. Like you have a conception of Vaikuntha, a conception of Swarga when you are actually coming from a different country, you know? It's a bliss, promised bliss. And when you come here, you embrace a different set of problems altogether, right? Is it not? A totally different set of problems. And this setup is such that it's a perfect system for exploitation. That you can be bonded level forever, ever. Like these days, the wait time for H1B, no, I'm sorry, the wait time for green card, even with EB2 processing, is 120 years. So which means you can pretty much forget about it. And these things, actually, if somebody starts talking about it, the company will say, please stop it. No discussion on this point. Why? Because the employees are actually kept in the illusion that you come here, just enjoy. But they're not able to see the long-term perspective of what's going on. So I'm just saying that the happiness which is like very much anticipated just on the basis of the senses contacting sense objects, it may appear that, look at Krishna's words here, it appears, so Amrita Upamam means like it appears like nectar at the beginning, but it is guaranteed to be a poison in the end. But just like poison in the end, which means like you are completely destroyed, and you will come to know about it after some time. You are not realizing it. Although you are going through the pain, we always think that the grasses are greener on the other side. If you keep on changing slightly, a few things, I will be able to enjoy. And we keep making adjustments in life, thinking that if I alter just this small aspect of my life, things may change, you know. But problem is that we are not understanding that our conception itself is faulty, and therefore doesn't matter whatever change we may make, you know, is not going to bring about any difference in the experience. And in the case of the person in the mode of ignorance, as usual, they get it exactly opposite, right? And therefore, even the so-called happiness that they think they're experiencing is also misery, you know. So that happiness which deludes the soul at the beginning and at the end, arising from what? Sleep, laziness, and madness. So this is the happiness of the mode of ignorance person. Sleep for 14 hours, remain lazy, and whenever get an opportunity, destroy something, a few things. This Hamas folks, right, these leaders, they are nicely like chilling out in Qatar, you know. Literally chilling out in Qatar, and then like having those, like creating like thousands of victims through their decision making process. And it just the way the world is set up, it's just amazing. So they are directing their whole madness, extending out through their representatives, and those guys are figuring out like the whole tunnel system where they are settling down. And then there are people coming to attack them, and then figuring out how to actually completely get rid of them. And in the process, there are so many other people are getting affected. So this is the result of the mode of ignorant activities, where You may do something just for your own sake, but whatever you may do, it will end up in destroying both yourself and others. And this is the characteristic of mode of ignorance. Otherwise, you're just happy-go-lucky, just sleep, remain lazy, know nothing, remain dull. So this is the happiness of the person in the mode of darkness or ignorance. So we are going to stop here for now. The next section is also pretty amazing. Here, Krishna is going to actually remove some of our misconceptions regarding the four varnas. Oftentimes we loosely just characterize that a Brahmana is operating in the mode of goodness, Kshatriya operating in the mode of passion, Vaishya, mixed mode of passion and ignorance, and Shudra in the mode of ignorance. So Krishna is going to dispel that misconception that is itself a misconception, and you will see how. So let's stop here, and let me see if you have any question or comment. Any question online first? Or comment? No question, no comment. Okay. Anybody from here have any question or comment? Okay. If not, we will stop here. So,
Just have one question.
okay.
In the mode of goodness, you spoke about fear. I'm still not able to understand.
No, it's not about fear. It's about they have the proper discernment of what is to be feared and what is not to be feared.
So what is there for them to fear?
The material existence.
But what
The
is
material existence is where it's a Maya. Maya Shakti of Krishna is to be feared for sure. If we are not fearful of Maya, then we will be flirting with Maya, as Prabhupada oftentimes says, do not flirt with Maya. we will try to take chances, you know.
It's a good fear.
Yeah, it's a healthy fear. Exactly. So Maya should be always be feared. Otherwise, we may think, okay, every day I will do my service of going to the bar for doing my service, you know. I'll follow in the footsteps of Lord Nityananda. That is going to be my area of service. And then I mean I'm just saying, like, you will be like that's like taking too much chances, you know. Yeah. So in other words, you can also say that a person in the mode of goodness is more self-aware. They know where to draw boundary, where there could be chances of fall down, and so what they're fearful of are any chance of fall down, if you want to see it another way. They don't want to fall down. Yeah. All right. So thank you all very much for joining today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.